Michael Ray here from Walk-Ins. Welcome. And real quick, mark your calendars for February 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern for our next webinar, which is all about DIY marketing tactics for your urgent care. If you're needing more patients in your door, but you don't have the budget for hiring a full-time team member inside to run the marketing or to hire an agency to help run those ads, these are things that you can do yourself, the owner, to help increase that patient volume. So hit the link below to register for the webinar. If you can't make that date, go ahead and register so you can get the replay later, and love to see you on there. Thanks.
You're listening to Walk-Ins. Welcome with Nick and Michael. We're glad to have you for another episode. I'm Nick. This is Michael. We have Geoffrey with us today. We'll get into that in just a second. But as always, we're here to help you get more patients, deliver better care, repeat visits, and scale your clinics up. Let's go. Michael, what's happening, bud?
What is happening? Yeah. And so we do a lot of interviews, and one of the biggest focuses on today's interview is all about efficiency, getting things done better. And it's like a whole process piece, because a lot of people think of like AI and things like that, it only helps certain pieces. Well, today we're going to go a little bit deeper, and there's more to it than just the one little piece of the puzzle. There's more pieces that actually Fluency can help with. But I have Geoffrey Gu with us today. He's the co-founder and CEO of Fluency. And basically, in a nutshell, it's like he calls it a clinical AI copilot. If you don't know what AI copilot means, basically AI is there to aid you to do your job better. So Geoffrey, great to have you on. I'm glad you're come today.
Geoffrey, welcome to the podcast. Say hello to the Walk-Ins. Welcome, audience, and tell us one thing about you that nobody else knows.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. One thing a lot of people don't know about me, and they don't realize until they become close friends with me, is how much of an avid surfer I am.
Okay.
So I grew up on the West Coast, and I've surfed all along the West Coast, down from San Diego through LA, Santa Barbara, up in Oregon, actually, where the waters are a lot colder. And people tend to see it as more of an extreme sport, but really 95% of the time you're waiting in the water, waiting for that next wave. And that's kind of where my mind starts drifting off. And I like thinking about a lot of things during that time, whether it's about urgent care specifically, whether it's about fluency, or it's just about my personal life. But that's what I like spending a lot of my free time doing.
It's funny, Geoffrey, how you find the perfect, I'm going to say sport or extracurricular activity, as my kids would call it, or hobby that allows you to completely shut out the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Nick is a pilot. And so that's where I will bring it. He doesn't like to bring it to where he's a pilot.
I never bring it up, but you do.
But I do. But so you bring up the surfing analogy. I always think in my head, I was like, I bet Nick's thinking about seeing those clouds.
Man. It's
when you're flying.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like there are times where you just need to just relax, right? And just let the things kind of hit you. Like, okay, let me just not be controlled by everything else right now. So
it's good.
Well, Geoffrey, great to have you on. We're excited to talk about Fluency and the fact that it's cool to see AI coming into the clinic more. We were just talking right before the episode how, urgent cares are a little bit afraid of AI. They don't know what to do with it. We've had now 2 or 3 guests come on that talks about AI. We have a big AI conversation episode coming up pretty soon too. That's talking about more layers to it. But yeah, tell us your story, your background. Why does Fluency even exist? Like, what was the goal behind it, and what's happening now?
Yeah, so our mission at Fluency it's quite simple, and it's to help doctors see more patients. And how we do that specifically is that we provide an EHR-agnostic, meaning we can integrate with any EHR, a clinical tool that gives clinicians and staff clinical insight into their patients before they actually meet their patient. And so as a little bit of background, I went to the University of Southern California for my undergraduate studies. And there I was actually a pre-medical student. So I was on track to go to medical school. I was ready to apply to medical school. I took the MCAT. I did my shadowing. I worked with doctors. I did research. So I was really ready to take that next step into actually working within a clinical practice. But as part of being a pre-med, you spend so much time working with doctors. And it was actually, I think a week after Thanksgiving, I went into an urgent care myself with, I suspect, food poisoning from Thanksgiving leftovers. And it was there I had an incredible doctor. Oh yeah, it was not a fun experience, but there I met an incredible doctor at an urgent care. And as a pre-medical student, my first thought was, can I shadow you? So I spent the next day shadowing the doctor after I felt a bit better. And it was then I noticed a lot of the inefficiencies that kind of go on behind the scenes that patients aren't necessarily privy to and they don't notice. But it really helps you understand the physician workflow and what could be better. And I came in with the background of doing a lot of research into AI myself, and I have a lot of friends who are on the technical side of AI as well. So I proposed an idea to the doctor saying, hey, what if we started pre-screening patients in your waiting room and started asking them relevant clinical questions? The doctor loved our idea, said if we build it, he'll be our first customer, and that we were off and running from there on out.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and even so, when you talk about your first customer, I think I know who that customer is, and because we have a
Yes.
cross relationship with our client on Evergreen Urgent Care, because Andy's awesome, and he came on the podcast not too long ago, so we're all connected in some ways. But at the end, I think what's fascinating about your story is you came at it like I knew a little bit about because I was becoming a student, so I was exposed to these things, but you were brand new to these things, which didn't allow you to say why are we doing it this way. And you don't have to have that. Well, it's because the way we always do it. And I think that's some of the mindset where, when a doctor when you're a doctor, like you've already been trained on something probably for 8 to 10 years before you're an actual practicing doctor. And so like you've been
Yes.
completely exposed to a way to do something. And then you're saying, hey, I think there's a better way here. And let's just basically, erase the drawing board and let me show you how much cleaner this probably could be for you. And that's what it sounds like your aha moment was coming. So I liked it.
Exactly. And I do want to emphasize is doctors do spend a lot of time in school, residency, even after residency, they're constantly learning. We're not here to completely up-level their workflow that they've grown accustomed to, but rather kind of come in with the integration first perspective of how can we make your workflow so much smoother. So if you have 10 steps, how can we remove 3 steps in between and give you even more information to not only shorten the amount of steps you have, but to really shorten the amount of time you spend working on those steps.
Cleaning up a process and allowing the doctor to do what they're good at, to do what they're there to do, which is to treat that patient. The more upfront information that they have delivered in such a concise way, which is what, and best I can tell, is what Fluency does. That's going to be a key ingredient to reduce the door-to-door time, to have a more human experience when you're sitting there with the patient. So I want to talk about a little about how you bridge the gap. You told your story, and I love the story. But there's a point where you go, hey, I'm not going to be a med student. I'm going to be a software developer, startup, tech startup, medical tech startup. I'm just adding things to this now. So, and to go from, you don't have to go to connect from med student to tech startup, but taking a tech startup and then turning it into a very robust software that's easy to implement into EMRs and all these things. Take me down that road.
Yes. So our first promised customer actually was not Andy, who was a very happy customer of your guys's, but it was actually in Los Angeles. It was at a different urgent care. Um, but what he ended up doing was he shifted away from urgent care pretty quickly. So Andy became our first paying customer. But kind of in between, because he encouraged the doctor I shadowed encouraged us to work on it, we began building out an extremely robust system. And what it began with was a simple pre-screen. We would ask a patient for their chief complaint, and then from there, ask the next best question in a multiple choice format, so extremely easy for the patient to answer. We would start asking clinical level questions. So if they come in with a cough, we'll start asking about the severity, the type of cough. Is it productive? Is it wet? Or is it producing mucus? Or is it dry? Is it a whooping cough? We'll start asking all these types of questions that a doctor would typically ask in the exam room. And so that's what we started off as. And then we realized doctors also have a lot of trouble with clinical documentation. So what we did was we transitioned these answers, these 10 to 15 answers that a patient may provide in the waiting room before they see the doctor, into predictive level clinical notes, where we not only use AI to ask patients these questions about their present illness, but also we use AI to run it through current literature in medicine and generate potential differential diagnoses, um, a, a clinical level plan, as well as summarize the HPI, the ROS for doctors as well. So that's kind of how we got into the documentation space, where now a doctor has a very comprehensive predictive clinical note before they see the patient. MAs can reference that to start giving tests to patients if they know a patient needs a strep test, and that patient in the waiting room over there definitely has strep or a UTI. They could prepare that test before they even see the patient. Um, and then it kind of went from there. We started building out our system more and more. We worked very closely with Andy to make sure our system was completely robust. Of course, paying attention to patient privacy as well, and making sure we don't step on the doctor's toes, but also provide them with very helpful information from the patient.
Oh man, it's almost like a doctor wearing a digital wristwatch that just gives you information as you need it.
You know what? Because it sounds like there's like one, you said the predictive stuff. So it's based on these answers. These are some things that you need, doctor, you should know about, type of thing. And since you said you're EHR agnostic, I assume like all of this data is being fed into the EHR on the fly. And so then you're once again eliminating some extra work that the doctor had to do. Now they don't have to as much, may just, verify things. But no, that's great because, right now, right this very second, so like the last week of January, our country is being pummeled by the flu right now. Like the flu is insane.
Respiratories taking over the country.
Yeah. And I understand, like, this is technically the time that urgent cares make a lot of money. Like, we get that, but they're also under high stress. We have quite a few clients, and it's fun to watch it because it sounds terrible. It's fun to watch when flu and stuff comes in. It usually comes from the West Coast and makes its way across the country. And we watch our urgent cares go from 30, 40 patients to 80 patients per day.
It's like a wave.
Yeah, it is like a wave. And, but like, we just had a conversation with an urgent care out of Oklahoma, and like, hey, we're hitting 80 plus. Our staff's overwhelmed. They're worn out from this type of thing. And I'm thinking of myself, like, this type of software would help reduce that wear, right? Like, where it could increase capacity, but it also can just give back just time to the staff where they don't feel like they're just constantly like having to stay after hours just to keep up with all the clerical work stuff. So this is great because yes, it's going to make you more efficient on a daily basis, but when you have that volume flying in there, you're not going to feel like I have to bring on more staff to make everything work. This could save you time on staff as well.
That's exactly what we do. So we like to think we give doctors, clinicians, any staff superpowers. So if your clinic suddenly increases, so this is a common complaint, exactly what you mentioned is currently the solution to facing increased patient volume is hire more staff, hire more providers, get more people so we can maintain the waiting room times. But instead, with our solution, instead of hiring more staff, you can maintain the same amount of staff and see twice the amount of patients that you typically see.
Hey, you're replacing, I don't want to say replacing, instead of having to go out
superpowering.
And get more,
Yeah.
instead of having to go out and get more people, quick story, because it's story time with Nick and Michael and now Geoffrey. So I had to go get a skin cancer screening. And they absolutely need this solution, even though you're just doing urgent care. But what I mean by that is you could tell there was the doctor who was seeing me, and then the young lady that was standing over in the corner while I have nothing but a gown on, by the way. That was awesome. Anyway, she's standing over the corner and she's just taking his notes for him. That's exactly what she was doing. He was saying things and he's like, this, hold this here, like all of that. And I'm going, that's a whole payroll that you have just for somebody. Granted, I'm grateful that she has a job. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, that's a software that could be doing that, and she could be doing bigger and better things.
Yeah.
Other than taking notes.
Well, we're in the marketing world, so we've been embracing AI since the first day ChatGPT was open. And there are things that AI is doing for us right now that we didn't think was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like not to the point where we can't even offer this to our clients because we just don't have the manpower to do it. And then once AI got to the point, we don't need the manpower. We have the right manpower to do all this heavy lift, let the AI do all the heavy lifting. And that's the thing I think people forget about. Like, you may have a great staff, but maybe they're not being utilized in the best way. Because I think at the end of the day, if that lady was taking notes, if that's all she did, there's something else they could use her for. Because taking notes is not, obviously software can help replace some of that. I'm actually kind of amazed that the court reporters, that AI hasn't fully replaced the court reporter yet. I'm kind of waiting for that.
You can bet it's coming.
I mean, it has to be, right? Because AI should be just as faster and faster.
Well, so let's have that conversation about AI for a second. Yeah. We'll pitch Fluency. We want to make sure that everybody knows how to get there, right? But let's talk about AI. You're in this all day, every day. So are we from a marketing perspective, but we're not in the clinic doing this, right? You are. So let me try and just ask you one question at a time. What pushback are you getting with AI? Let's start there.
Very little pushback from what we do.
That's new.
Because what we provide is additional clinical context to the physician. And at least all the providers I know will not complain about the additional clinical context. And then we help also standardize across larger urgent cares if they have standing orders, if there's a certain plan that they should follow for a specific type of patient. We help standardize the process and just make everything just run a bit smoother, because an urgent care is a complex network of constantly moving parts, different patients. You have MAs, you have PAs, you have NPs, you have MDs, right? So, and there's a lot of communication gaps in between that process. So MAs currently may provide a physician a 1 or 2 sentence or just a one-liner summary of the patient that they're about to see. But instead, we allow the physician to see far more than that simple one-liner that MAs provide, meaning the MA can focus now more on the laboratory tests and rooming the next patient, and the doctor can focus on the patient themselves and with a greater understanding of the patient before they even see them.
That's good. So currently, AI can answer a phone call. Your software can do a full intake that's going to give doctor the best information up front for when they see that patient. You have scribe software that's going to listen in and take those notes and get it all organized for you while you're having that human connection with the patient. You now have software that will help you with your payer, make sure that everything is coded correctly and delivered. What solution, like with Fluency.health, the main solution, and where is it going?
Yeah. So
where does it fit in all that? It's kind of what I'm asking.
Where does Fluency fit within AI in general?
Well, within an urgent care's adoption of AI.
Yes. So we touched on the initial part of the patient while they're rooming before they're even seen by the provider, and then I could clarify that we generate that predictive note, right? And as you mentioned, that they could record the conversation, and we turn that predictive note from predictive into a confirmative note of what actually happened during that patient interaction. So now doctors don't have to worry about any clinical documentation. And then you also mentioned billing. So what we do is we take that confirmative clinical documentation from that visit, and some doctor time is spent on finding the correct CPT code, meaning the procedure code that correlates to the test that they did, or finding the right ICD code that goes along with the diagnosis. And within certain EHRs, actually, we automate that all. So we identify the SNOMED code relevant to the diagnosis of that appointment, the ICD code as well relevant to that diagnosis, the CPT codes, the ENM codes that are all relevant to the procedure itself. We identify all that and push it directly into the EHR for the physicians. And for EHRs where we don't necessarily have that integration available, we just put it on a dashboard for physicians. It's extremely easy for them to either copy and paste or just reference onto their EHR themselves.
I think that knocks out most everything they're going to need. So
yes.
Like from walking into the door, or maybe even before, if they're filling it out on the app before they even come in. But from the minute they make the decision to become an urgent care patient all the way to the coding and reimbursement, you guys can hold the hand, digital hand, if you will, step by step. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Exactly. We like to think of ourselves as kind of like an EHR-agnostic blanket that sits on top of your EHR that just makes everything run way smoother. way quicker, less burnout, just better.
Incredible. I love it. All right.
I'm curious. So you had, like you said, next to no pushback so far. So when you go into an urgent care, you're like, this is something that can help you, like, please help me. What is the most exciting feature that urgent cares tend to lean into? Like, oh, I can't believe it can do that, or I wish I knew about this years ago, or this was available years ago.
Yeah, so it's doctors, when they actually, regarding pushback, when they actually see the Fluency platform, it's almost like a oh my gosh moment where they're like, I could have had this entire time.
Right.
So once we actually get to demo it for the doctor, it's we haven't encountered a situation where they're like, this is useless and we don't want it, or this is going to take our job, which we definitely won't do. Um, Instead, it's everything is just so much better with it. And then your second question was, how is it better with doctors, right? Like
Yeah,
what
like
feature is their favorite?
yeah, what's like this
Yeah.
is awesome. I wish I had this years ago. What tends to be the feature that drives that?
Yeah, I could cover that on two ends. So I was in a clinic yesterday, actually, and then we were onboarding them with Fluency. Um, the favorite, most fun feature about Fluency is how we ask the questions and how the questions we ask are so precise to that patient.
Mm.
We provide a simple QR code. The patient scans it. They do their normal check-in where they answer demographics, and then they move on to the Fluency part where we start asking them questions relevant to their present illness. And then the front desk thought it was so cool that we had all three receptionists at the front desk playing with Fluency, pretending they're patients, sending it to doctors, and then doctors are getting this predictive note. So the front desk patients, they love how we're asking questions and how we make it so easy to answer in a multiple choice format. And then doctors love how much clinical context that we provide. And what's cool about us specifically is we learn the procedures of a specific urgent care. And this is what doctors find particularly useful is we get to the point where our predictive clinical notes are almost 95% completely correct before they even see the patient because we know they're going to do these tests at this urgent care, or we know this is what they like asking a patient. So a lot of the burdenous work is already done for the doctor, which they love, and then they could focus more on beyond the surface level complaints and actually dig deeper into any particular complaint.
I mean, it sounds like not only are you agnostic to the EHR, but you're agnostic to how a urgent care operates, where you're basically customizing a blueprint for them, and then
Yeah.
once it's figured out, you're like, this is my flow. Like we have that all the time here internally, where we're trying to take processes and adjust to our flow, and where it makes sense, where we're not having to say, why are we doing this again, or why does this feel like a hiccup, or this feels redundant, doesn't feel like I should be doing this twice or something like that. So that's awesome that you can actually fine tune it the whole way through, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and different clinics of different sizes have their own focuses, right? So if you're a larger clinic and you see 100 patients a day, you might be very tuned into door-to-door time for the patient, and so that's what we help you tune into. So how can we reduce the rooming time that an MA spends? So meaning they could spend less time collecting history because we already pre-collected that. And how can we help the provider do the appointment faster by giving them the correct clinical context that they need, and then also automating their documentation and billing codes after that. Whereas a smaller clinic may be more focused on the patient experience. So how can we make sure that questionnaire is as friendly as possible? And we tune our software between each clinic to make sure it perfectly fits their needs.
Love it.
Nice.
All right, so let's talk about the demo a little bit. You guys offer a free demo where they can hop on a call. I'm assuming like a Zoom or something like that. Talk me through the process. What can they expect on a demo, and what are next steps for somebody who would like to check this out?
Sure. Yeah. What you can expect from a demo is really you got to play around with Fluency. Pretend you're a patient, or you're the doctor typically. Pretend you're the patient, come in with something difficult. We like asking doctors to find the most challenging chief complaint and then put the most challenging symptoms in a typically hard to diagnose illness within an urgent care patient. And pretty much every single time we'll provide the right clinical guidelines of what a doctor would typically do. So that's really cool for doctors. And then within the demo itself, you could play with the ambient scribe feature. You could not only dictate, but have a real conversation with a with a fake patient right during the demo, and see the clinical note within 5 seconds, automatically generate for you. We have a feature called Fluency Intelligence where you could ask it to write work notes for you. You could ask it for the correct ICD code. We even provide contraindication checks where if a patient is allergic to a certain medication and you prescribe maybe an analog to that medication, we would give you a little warning saying like, hey, like EHRs already provide this, but we're like an additional layer there where we could go like, hey, like maybe you shouldn't provide this to the patient given this existing allergy to the medications. And if you do want to find us, our website is fluency.health, not .com, just fluency.health is the domain. And then we have a little demo button up there where you can book a call and it will be with me. And then I'll show you around Fluency.
So I can go ahead and tell you, when you go to fluency.health, you're not going to get some convoluted, bloated website. It was very easy to navigate, very easy to get good information, very easy to schedule a demo. And I want to encourage, we'll drop it in the show notes, just a direct link to fluency.health. But Geoffrey, if somebody wanted to connect with you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, you can email us at hi@fluency.health, and that gets forwarded straight to my email, Geoffrey, Geoffrey, @fluency.health. And then if I email you back, you'll have my personal number. I don't know if it's the best idea to put it out there on the internet right now.
I'm not putting it out there. No worries about that.
But I'm extremely easy to reach, especially if you are a customer. We have Andy texts me all the time. He sends me emails. His staff sends me emails. They want a small feature request. We have it ready almost the next day, usually. If it's a smaller feature request, or if it's a larger feature request, we can generally have it up within a week. So we completely focus on our current customers to make sure that everything is working as perfect as possible. And we also wanted to provide actually a special offer to listeners of Walk-ins Welcome, if that's fine.
Yes,
Perfect.
please.
Yeah. So we're really confident in what we could deliver for urgent care. So what we're offering is not necessarily traditional in that sense, where we'll let you use Fluency, the whole platform, no restrictions for 50 days. And if at any time within those first 50 days, you think, okay, Fluency isn't providing enough value, or you just don't like Fluency, we'll provide you a full refund of those 50 days. No questions asked.
Nice.
That's a pretty strong offer.
No risk, right?
I love that.
Zero risk. Exactly.
I was going to say, there's not any more risk-free than that. I love it's 50 days and not 60. That's kind of wild to me. So I'm down for that.
He needs those 10 days to implement it.
That's
right?
it. You got to have time to implement. I get it. So
yes.
Well,
and implementation is quick as well.
That is a strong offer. So do they need to mention a code, or just mention that they heard them on the podcast?
It's important to mention Walk-ins Welcome. Yeah.
I want to make sure, because otherwise you're not going to know.
We don't offer this to everyone. This is a listener special.
Benefits of listening to Walk-ins Welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. Hey, listen, Geoffrey, we appreciate you being on the podcast. I think the software is incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing it with more of our clients, because anytime that we are bringing in new customers, new patients, we're hearing it from our clients now. Hey, listen, there's a lot of patients coming through the door. So if you're reducing door-to-door time, they're able to deliver better care and make more money that way. And that's the things that we're all passionate about. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, Geoffrey. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun. All right.
We will catch you all next Wednesday. Until then, go out and make an impact on your community. We'll talk to you soon.